Hey everyone, Betsy here. I wanted to share with you really quickly 6 of our illustrated classics. So these are books, they are collections of stories. They all come, with this included bookmark. And each book has anywhere from, 5 or 6 to some of them have up to 17, 18 stories combined into one bound book. They've got that kind of, it's the hard cover, but it's got that padded cover to it. So really sturdy, great books. This happens to be the illustrated Grimm's Fairy Tales. These are some of your very traditional tellings of fairy tales, some very well known, such as Rapunzel, the Frog Prince, the 12 Dancing Princesses, others not quite as well known, such as the Musicians of Bremen, King Thrushbeard, and others. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 stories, traditional fairy tales bound here in this book. We have another, this is the Illustrated Stories of Princes and Princesses. Sorry, I'm trying to make sure there's not a glare. Again, a book of fairy tales. Same padded hardcover. It has the bookmark inside. Some of these stories are similar tellings of the stories in the Brothers Grimm book, such as the 12 Dancing Princesses, the Sleeping Beauty is in here. I'm pretty sure that's in the other, the Frog Prince. So there is some crossover, but this also has stories such as the Prince and the Giant and the Princess on the Glass Hill, Rhodopsies, I believe is how you say it, which is like an Egyptian Cinderella. So some of these are more cultural tellings. There's a story from China in this book, Egypt, and I forget, an Italian folk tale. So different cultures represented also in this book, but all stories of princes and princesses. So if you've got someone who's into fairy tales, they might like this version as well. We also have our illustrated stories from Aesop. These, are the fables, a book of fables, and I like how they're separated into stories about pride, trickery, greed, quarrels. So just the same idea, the short stories, the wolf in sheep's clothing, the cat and the hens, some, the well-known tortoise and the hare, the fox and the crow, but then there's also some of those more or not as well-known stories. For example, let me see this one, The Lion and the Statue. I don't know that one. So a great collection of Aesop's fables. Moving on, we have two books of myths. We have the illustrated Greek myths and we have illustrated Norse myths. I've been reading through these myself, actually. And something that I love about these books, such as the Greek myths, so many times in other stories or chapter books that your kids might be reading, it references mythology, such as the strength of Hercules or a labyrinth, like the Minotaur. So you could expose your child to those actual stories in a more kid-friendly version through these books, and then they'll understand those references when they see them in other stories that they read. These are separated. The Greek mythology has 6 full tellings of different stories, such as the Wooden Horse, the Minotaur, the Odyssey, and they're separated into chapters. So here's the Wooden Horse, and it's separated into 7 chapters. And just really, really simple tellings of the more complex myths. So I was reading through this, and lots of illustrations to support the story here as well. In the back, it gives, just some background information on mythology. It also gives very short tellings of other myths, Pandora's Box, and just a brief history of mythology. So just a really good resource. Norse Myths, I've been reading through this one myself as well, and I really like, because I don't really know a whole lot about Norse mythology, but I like at the beginning of this book that I have actually been referencing back to quite a bit. They have, a cast of characters, some of the most well-known gods and goddesses and other giants. So it just a really good. This one doesn't have as many illustrations in it, but it is supported here and there by pictures. The stories had not been altered. Norse mythology is definitely grim. It's got violence, and that's not cut out. It's just presented more, for lack of a better, child friendly. But it's there, so it's not, it's not removed from the stories just because this is meant to be a children's book. So just keep that in mind. And last but not least, we have the illustrated stories from Shakespeare, and I actually just finished. I had always kind of wanted to read Twelfth Night, but I never had the urge to go pick up the play version. So I was actually really excited to get this book, and I just read Twelfth Night for the first time. So it's just a very reader-friendly version of some of Shakespeare's more famous stories. Twelfth Night, Romeo and Juliet, The Tempest, Midsummer's Night Dream, Macbeth, Hamlet, and then it gives a little bit of background about William Shakespeare himself. So it's not, these are written as stories. They're not written like plays, but there are points in the telling where they include some of Shakespeare's own writing, and you always know that it's his because it's italicized. So this would also be great, for you to have on hand as your children get older and are starting to read some of those plays in school, to kind of have maybe a reference or a quick synopsis of the story. So these are just a few of our illustrated classics. If you have questions about any of them, comment or message me and I can get you closer looks. So that's it for now.